Good morning. Excuse me, I'm still dealing with a cold, so I always say I sound like a man right now. I guess we'll go ahead and go to the first slide. Okay.
Are there lights that can you all see the slides just fine?
So good morning, or yad bine. It's a pleasure being here, and thank you for Ra on inviting us here. And I guess we're going to have some humor in this. So in our line of work, that's the sort of thing that we kind of get through our day. So the two of us, I think we're known as the humorous ones at work. So we tend to laugh a lot. And I think that's a good thing too, just because it's a wonder. It's good for your soul as well when you have humor. So next slide. So my section, I'll go ahead and introduce myself in my native language, and then I'll have Lucinda do her own. She Elsie Smallcanyon, she torich in shnolak adna bashchin, adat lezislane dashache, ashin dashanale. You see nashade a shatode, adashanale a natis aden dakre. Hot I son and shlem. So, in the first there, I went and introduced myself with my 4 clans. Usually it's the maternal, then the paternal. So my first 2 are Bitterwater and Reed people. I'm originally from Shanto, and my Nullies, or my paternal grandparents, are from Navajo Mountain, which is where she's from. So I've started with the shelter back in 2005. Originally came on as a volunteer, enjoyed that, and then I got hired on as a shelter crisis advocate. And a few months later, I got promoted to social worker, which is what I went to school for. And then over the years, just wore different hats. I've been an outreach advocate, as well as shelter manager, as well as victim advocate, so pretty much wore all hats. And then in 2011, I was pretty much just thrown into the shelter position. Our former director just gave her notice, and she ended up leaving. So we've survived, I think. In the past, I've worked with a law office, so I was a legal secretary, as well as getting trained as a legal consultant. And I guess you could say I chickened out because my boss at the time was willing to help me study for the bar exam with the Navajo Nation, and I still have difficulty speaking my native tongue. So of course we all have different dialects in different areas of our reservation. But so I was a legal secretary for, oh my gosh, I don't know, like 8-9 years. But I was going to school at the same time, so I would come back on my breaks and help him. And then I moved to Flagstaff, and I became a deputy court clerk there with the Coconino County Justice Court, and I was there with them for about 2 years. And then after that, I was expecting my son, so I took on a smaller role with the county sheriff's department, and I worked in the warrants department. So I like to think I've come full circle, and now I'm an advocate. I'll always be an advocate. I am a survivor. I was in an abusive relationship. It's hard to talk about, but I think it's just made us stronger. And I thank my kids. They're the main force behind my decision to move forward and leave that relationship. So I'm stress-free, yes, and I can tell you that. And I have 5 beautiful children, 4 boys and 1 daughter. I call her my princess, and she's sitting here among us, and she's always volunteering with our organization. And my oldest, he's going to be finishing in 2 semesters at the University of Arizona, so we're a Wildcat family. And I'm the youngest of 9. I have 4 brothers and 4 older sisters. There would have been 10 of us, but my mother died in childbirth with the last one, so I really didn't get to know my mom. My dad passed on probably a couple of weeks before I turned 10. So I was from home to home, and of course, what that meant abuse, neglect. I've also been a survivor of child molestation, and into my teen years came into sexual assault as well as a DV survivor in my adult years. So who knows? You know, is there something else beyond that? We don't know. But all I can say is I'm stronger, I'm wiser, hopefully. I think she'll disagree with me on that. But again, I'm an advocate for life. So I will go ahead and hand this over to Lucinda. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lucinda Redhouse, and my clans are Todich and Schlab, Tratnesatni Bashachin, but Ahneda Shache and Kitlachini are my nullies. And I started at the shelter December of 2004. Been there, started as a volunteer shelter crisis advocate, and then outreach, and now I'm a social worker. I'm a mother of 8, 5 girls and 3 boys, 14 grandchildren. I work 2 jobs just to support my kids. And I love my job, working as an advocate there. I'm originally from Navajo Mountain, but I live in Kayenta for about almost 40 years now. I'm always thankful.
Is that a microphone you have in your hand?
Yeah.
You need to
Well,
put it to your mouth.
It's a mic just for the video. So just speak up.
Oh. And I'm just thankful that I have my kids, and I'm also a survivor. I've been through a lot with my ex-husband. And I'm glad that we're here. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. So we're from Kayenta, and that's where our shelter's at. And it's a small community. It's a small community, and we're located on the Navajo Reservation. And they're talking about being out in a rural area. I call it we're out in the boonies. So that's where we're at. So next slide. So our shelter organization, I'll go ahead and talk about that. We're a nonprofit organization with a 501c3 status. And we're primarily a DV program, but being in such a rural area, we also provide services to sexual assault victims or survivors, and the occasional homeless. However, we are working on trying to make our program a dual program, both DV and SA. So it's a lot of work, but it's doable. We are presently the only 24-hour shelter on the Navajo Reservation since Shiprock's closure. But I heard somewhere that Navajo Nation might even be considering opening another shelter in Shiprock. So I guess it's kind of good news. And I'm just kind of puzzled as to how that's going to be done, but I really do hope it does happen, just because there's a lot of people out there who need the shelter services. We accept men, women, and children, being that we get federal, state, county funds. It does say in their guidelines that we can't discriminate based on sex, gender, age, all the good stuff. So being the only shelter in that area, we do accept men and children and women, elders as well. In any direction from us, it's about a 2-hour drive to the next shelter. So it means a lot to have this shelter open there. Next. In July of 2016, last summer, we finally moved into our new facility. That facility has been sitting there for almost a decade. With a brief history on that, the first contractor mismanaged the funds and ended up not completing his work, so it ended up in litigation. That finally ended in about 2007, and so since the buildings were just sitting there, it went through vandalism. Mother Nature took a beating on it, and we've had to bring in more construction companies, and we had help through NHA and the HAZA funds, and they were able to help us renovate some of these buildings. So we, at this time, have a total of 9 staff, 8 full-time and 1 part-time. And I'm sorry, we moved from an 8-bed facility to a 30-bed facility. I mean, that's more than tripling our capacity. And with probably the next clearance of our remaining rooms, we will probably have an additional 15 to 20 more beds. So that's going to kick us up to 45 to 50 beds. And that's a lot. And with this amount of staff, it's going to be tough. I mean, it's already tough. We've been at full capacity now since we moved in. So it's a wonder that we've been at full capacity. And it's testimony to the Navajo Nation and other funders that this is a needed service in our area. We do have a board of directors. We have 4 active members, 1 pending. And I'm really looking forward to new ideas. I think that's the only way that we're able to go and have programs sustain themselves. And this is our 35th year in operation. It's really been tough, I think, especially with a lot of the new changes every year with new guidelines coming forth. It's a miracle. So we're 18 miles south of the Utah state line, and we're right up in the Four Corners area. Thanks. So this is our mission statement, and I'm not going to read it word for word. So I tried to make it big enough so that you guys could read it. But primarily, it's to help decrease the incidence of domestic violence. We do need to have our board members go and update this because, as you can see, it will just say women and children on the bottom. We need to include men and other groups of the underrepresented groups. So go ahead. So our shelter history. Being a small community, we had high incidences of domestic violence occurring in the area. So there were a few community members in the area who went and decided we need to do something about this. So they were just kind of getting together, talking about it, trying to figure out how they could help. So in the community, they had designated a home to shelter families, individuals running from abuse. And there was one lady in particular who's now one of our board members. She was this first person to volunteer her time and help these families. She lived right across the road from them, and so, throughout the day and night, she'd go over and check on them. So she was everything. She was the advocate, she was the cook, she was the security guard, which we all are now. So I'm proud to say that she is part of our board members, board of directors, and she's just a sweet lady. Next. So after that, the group got together. There were church members involved, people from the IHS department, and they got together. They decided, okay, how can we go about getting funds to help support this? And through the chapter, they talked about some more concerning issues that would help this. And so they applied for a grant. And I believe the first monies they had gotten was about $500. But of course, back in that day, that was a lot. So they ended up filing paperwork, and they were formally established as an organization in 1982. So time starting, that's 35 years. but who knows how many years before then they were actually in operation. So after that, a mobile home was donated to this organization, and I couldn't find records of when they moved in. And so we were operating out of that for the longest time, just doing patchwork, Band-Aid jobs on it, but it was a homey feeling, and it worked. So we were in there until July of 2016 when we finally moved into our new facility. So there you go. I will go ahead and hand this over to Lucinda. Thank you.
Hey. Okay. The shelter services we provide shelter beds, and then the meals, transportations, and then counselings for adults and children's life skills, group skills, the advocacy, the outreach, toll-free crisis hotline, and the legal assistance with protection orders. And then we do have a staff attorney that we have there. And then the service area. We accept clients from all areas. Transport areas usually include Mexican Water, Red Mesa, Rough Rock, Mini Farms, Cow Springs, Inscription House, Monument Valley, and Navajo Mountain. And then we collaborate with other entities with, like such as Adobe, the police department, and the medical transports, the social service. Welcome to the Navajo Nation, Yat E Dene Bekeya. And the service area continued. Navajo Reservation comparable in size to the state of Rhode Island. 2016 statistics. Residential, we had 46 women, 4 men, 61 children. Non-residentials, that's the outreach, 3 women and 5 children. 99% were all Native Americans, 1% is other. And then the ages were from 0 to 60-year-old. Shelter nights, the bed nights was 2,431. Unmet requests for shelter, 174. The crisis calls, 293. Supportive services for adult, 6,160 individual, 882 group.
So let me touch on that. The statistics that we just gave just now, that doesn't include the time that we moved into our new facility. So those statistics actually equal just 1/4 from our old facility to our new facility. So it's that amount. Right now, I was just working on the stats yesterday, looking at it again, and we've tripled that. And it's a lot. And so a lot of these supportive services we're talking about, that's talking about DB sessions, one-on-ones, morning meditations, life skills. We even try to do activities with adults and kids just to make them understand. I'm more of a visual, hands-on person, so we try to implement these ideas with our clients. And the children especially enjoy activities such as hand painting, to kind of give them an idea of hands can be done making stuff instead of hitting or slapping. And so a lot of our community education also surrounds that. We try to get people involved and to make them understand that it's not only physical abuse that is associated with domestic violence. There's verbal, huazad, meaning that your words that you speak, you can never take that back. Emotional abuse, I think those are the most damaging, because who's going to come in and erase our memory? Who's going to stand there and say, oh, let's just wipe that? No, it's going to be more damaging, and it's going to, we might forget for a time, but something's going to trigger that. And when that happens, it takes us back to that day. And so we try to, let these parents, these community members know, watch what you say, because once you say it, you can never take it back. So, sorry, I had to interrupt right there.
And then we do community education, adults general population 28 presentation with 669 participants. And then the youth, 6 presentations with 696 participants. Community awareness, 9 activities. Awareness event. This was from our October Awareness Month, back in October. We do community cookout, and then the DV 101 training, and then the trail ride, and then the DV walk. And then January is stalking awareness, February teen dating, and April is sexual awareness, and also child abuse.
So we had a lot more activities than this, but I just didn't want to bore you guys. We have more slides after this. So as you can see, I'm really proud of the picture on the bottom there. We have our Navajo Nation Vice President, Jonathan Nez. He's played a very integral part in our opening of our shelter. And I'm proud to say, before becoming our Navajo Nation Vice President, he was my council delegate from the Shanto chapter. And he's just been really awesome. He listens. And when we took over in 2011, we thought, what could we do? What can we do to get into this new facility? And so we made contacts with him, the chapter manager at the time, and he was also the Navajo County Board of Supervisor. So he made contacts with the county board members. And our first meeting, we had 25 people there. And I think when I say some words in Navajo, it just brings more emphasis to it. And I said, meaning that finally, we have somebody that can be our voice, be our champion, and get these people involved. And when he finally did that, the township manager finally stepped up. The Kayenta chapter manager finally stepped up. And just people in the area finally like, oh, hey, wait, that's our jurisdiction. We have something to say about that. And so they were trying to take over the meeting again. I'm like, no. Let him do it, because he was the first one who was man enough to step up and help us. So we got just more people really getting involved with getting our organization's new facility up and going. And so we've had meetings since then, and I just really want to thank him. And I think, with this picture also, it says a lot. And this is a community awareness event that he came out. And he's really into fitness, so we call it the walk, but he usually runs. And so we're trying to keep up with him and trying to ask him questions, but he's just a terrific individual. The individual standing right in the center there is Robert Black Jr., and he's the Shanto chapter manager, and I'm proud to say he's my cousin. And I think he's done a wonderful job in that community. And those are most of my staff there. And although the sun's in our eyes, I think that was just kind of an event that whew, we did it. We did it again. Another year under our belt. We have more participants this year. And we had people there. As you can see, there's kids running around the back. These are some of our walkers up on the top picture. And, you know, they're always wanting to carry these signs and really get involved with our activities. So that's our awareness event. So I just thought this was really nice. And that's basically our thing there is empowerment. Sha means do it for me. It's not our concept. We try to have individuals that enter the shelter make goals for themselves, and then we assist them. So it's like putting out a deck of cards in front of them. What do you want to do? These are some of your options. These are some of the available resources in the area. What do you want? So I think in that sense, it gives them back that power, that sense of confidence. So that's our thing there. And I just really want to thank those that are in this line of work or those that provide direct services in any capacity, that you guys are to be honored. It's a selfless job you guys are putting in. May not be physical a lot of the times, but your heart's in it. And I do thank you for that. So our volunteers, I also owe a big thank you to Lost for a Reason. They're another nonprofit organization that have a group of men, mainly men, who are specialized in certain areas, whether it's carpentry, plumbing, just so many areas. I can never say enough about this group as well. They were also another group that really helped us with our facility. We had a pipe break. When was that? Right before we moved in, the spring of 2016. There was a pipe break. We were really looking forward to moving in, and then all of a sudden it's like, great, there's a big gaping hole in the ceiling, there's water all over the place, and I called him up. I said, hey, Ron, and the gentleman's name is Ron Grace, and he's the CEO of that organization. I called him up. I said, Ron, we are out of options on who we can ask for help. I said, Township's backing out on us. NAHAZA funds are out. What can we do? Not to bash Township, but you know, they have other projects in the area that they also have to tend to. And you know, other organizations that they were helping, so they couldn't assist us at the time. So we called Lost for a Reason. They came out one weekend and they fixed it. And it was just like, wow, this is great, thank you. So the community of Kayenta, we have church members, just private citizens that also come around and help. Kayenta Township is one of them. Monument Valley High School, we tap into a lot of their resources as well. With the National Honor Society group, the high school students are usually looking to work on their volunteer hours. So we use them, not use them, but we ask, we ask for their help, and it's great. And my daughter here, she is part of that National Honor Society also, and you know, she's our voice on that end, and it's really great. You know, we have students who come up and say, what do you need help with? And this last picture there, here, that's my pride and joy there. That's the group of the Gates Millennium Scholarship recipients, and Monument Valley High School over the years has produced the highest number of Gates Scholars within these last 10 years. And my son, who is standing the second from, what's this, right? He was also a Gates Scholar, and he's the one that's at University of Arizona now. This group particularly, they've logged in so many volunteer hours with our shelter that it was kind of sad to see them go and graduate. I'm like, no, can you guys stay another year? But, you know, they were just really great. You know, they were there. It didn't matter if it was a weekend or an evening, they were there. And so the National Honor Society, the Multicultural Club, they've just been a really great help. And so I do want to say thank you to the Monument Valley High School students. So donations, we go through a lot of hygiene products, shampoos, conditioners, body washes, even diapers, adult diapers as well. We have been spending a lot on that every shopping trip, and believe me, I do not like to go shopping now. I'm at Sam's Club and I could spend half a day in there and my shopping's still not done. But these are some of the things that we tend to ask for, and since we go through a lot on that. So this is our contact information. Our organization is called Twidinesha Committee Against Family Abuse. It's a mouthful, so we just say TCAFA. So you call us one day and we say, good morning, TCAFA, can I help you? You'll be like, what? But that's just us, TCAFA. We do have a toll-free hotline number, and that's 877-697-8591. And that's my email address, smallcanyon_@yahoo.com. And then Cindy here is cindyredhouse@gmail.com. So that's our symbol there. So I guess next one. Any questions?
We started the conference with somebody who works in the trenches to remind us what we do and how we collaborate and how we share our strengths and support each other through the tough times. Just like these silent witnesses around the room remind us of those who we couldn't help. Thank you.
Question? I have a question. What's the average day of a family in the shelter?
It varies. For family violence, we often accept them for 30 days. Just because a lot with them happens to, of course, family really can't let you go. So they tend to make that, they talk it over and they end up going home. As to intimate partner violence, we accept them on 120 days depending on a 30-day progress, meaning that we ask them to list short-term goals and long-term goals, and we assist them with that. And if they're moving along, great, fine. We'll work with them. We'll continue to put out referrals. Homeless individuals, unfortunately, we can only accept them for 72 hours just because we do not get reimbursed for the services we provide to them. So the length of stay varies. It could be anywhere from just a 30-minute walk-in. We complete their paperwork and they're like, okay, never mind. I'm going to go ahead and go somewhere else. So they go. To a few weeks to actually hitting that 120-day mark. So I think on average every month, like I said, it fluctuates, but just this last statistics for last month was about 21 days. I think it was 21 days.
I have a question. So what is the, what's the qualification for your services? Like, for example, we have one deaf Native American that lives in Utah, and she would prefer to be involved with her own culture. And so, there really isn't a lot of shelters here in Utah that have, Native American cultures included in their shelter. So do you accept people from out of state?
Yes, we do. We do accept people from all over. We've actually had
One from Alaska.
Yeah, one that came in from Alaska, a few that came in from the East Coast. It's just they shelter hop along their way and then they make it out to our shelter. I think a lot of the times they come out to our shelters because I mentioned we're out in the boonies. So a lot of times their abuser or their perpetrator are not able to locate them out there. So we are very rural, but yes, we do accept men, women, children from all over. And they don't have to be native. We've had other races.
I live here in St. George, and I work with the Dove Center and the Aaron Kimball Foundation to help those women who have been abused. Is the Is the problem more serious among the Native Americans than it is among the white occupation?
Personally, I don't think it's more of a problem among Native Americans because it hits across all boards. It doesn't matter if you're, hitting the poverty line, you're middle class, you're upper class. There's just, I think, just ways of more reporting, which results in higher numbers. And then I think just also taking into the fact that what available resources are there? Are they more comfortable with coming out and actually reporting that incident? But also taking into the cultural aspect of it. Because a lot of times I think especially in the Navajo culture, they always thought that meaning that you don't talk about it. It's no one else's business. So they tend to keep it within that own family unit, but it eventually comes out. So all those statistics do show that there's 1 in 3 compared to 1 in 4. So the 1 in 3 would be the Native American Alaskan tribes that experience domestic violence, as opposed to 1 in 4 the general population. But that's not really a big disparity. So I really don't like to differentiate that just because all people need that help, no matter that the incident is really extreme or less extreme. It's not up to us to say, oh, that was just a little thing. No, it's a big problem everywhere. One culture might think, no, this is how we go and talk to our people like this, whereas others are like, no, this is what we consider domestic violence. So just even that in itself, domestic violence is viewed differently by everybody.
Good question. So I'm also wondering, do people that can stay in the shelter for 30 days, do you transition them to apartments, or do they just stay in the shelter for 30 days?
Within our organization, I'd really love to get a transitional housing grant, which would extend their stay, making that transition from emergency shelter to transitional. But it's kind of difficult because just how that facility was set up, it really doesn't give us a chance to kind of set up how would you say it, like a prorated utility sort of thing. So we're still working into that, but those that do want to transition out, then we make those referrals out. It could be Phoenix, or in other states like in Albuquerque, New Mexico, we'll make those referrals and we help make those arrangements to help them get out there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, so how far is your town from here? What's the distance from here?
So we traveled 4.5 4.5 hours. My mind's kind of slow this morning. I really can't add. yeah, I'll have that. But it took us about 4.5 hours. It was a distance, but this is my first time to St. George, and oh my gosh, this place is beautiful. Even my daughter's like, oh my gosh, Mom, look at this place. And so yes, it's really lovely out here. And I do thank Rob for, inviting us out here to see this wonderful place and giving us the opportunity to go ahead and talk about our organization.
I'm just curious, when they leave your shelter, do they go into a homeless shelter afterwards, or are there usually apartments or homes available for them?
Again, that's going to be completely up to them on what they want to do afterwards. In our area, there's lack of housing. I can tell you the waiting list is about 2 years long. So it just depends on what they want to do. If they want to still continue receiving services and they want to enter another shelter, then we'll help them get to another shelter. Flagstaff has a couple of homeless shelters that have longer term stays, so they're able to get into those organizations out there. If not, we try to encourage them to apply for Section 8 housing, which allows them to apply for that program. And there are certain areas, like in Farmington, New Mexico, There's certain apartment complexes in the area that they're able to apply that Section 8 housing program to, and then they can get into those houses. If not, then they either return and ask the abuser to leave, or they end up staying with relatives or friends. And in our instance is when they reach that max stay, unfortunately, we're limited as well. So it has to be a new incident for them to come back into our organization. And a lot of times that does happen. We do have repeat clients that do come back in. They'll make it out for like maybe a couple of days and something else comes up and, they come back. We tell them, we're here 24/7. You need that assistance again, just give us a call, and then, we take them back in. Yeah. She had a question first.
Repeat the question for them.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm from Salt Lake County, and especially in some of the smaller communities, there's not a lot of trust of the shelters. What's kind of the impression of the community at large about the shelter? Do they feel like people can go there? Do they discourage people from going there? Just kind of like, what do you hear?
The impression of our shelter in our area?
Yeah.
I wouldn't really. No, you know what? That's a good question. We probably need to ask that on our intakes. But a lot of times they'll say, well, I've called this number, or I called another shelter, and they say, hey, there's a shelter on the Navajo reservation that could be culturally specific to your needs. And so they'll call and they'll ask us. And a lot of times we'll tell them what our services are and what resources are in the area. And if they're fine with that, then we'll bring them in. For a time there, we actually had some funds that were set aside to pay for a traditional healer. And then there's areas such as Department of Behavioral Health that provided sweat lodges. They had a traditional healer within that department, so we would make those referrals out. So it's different. A lot of the natives aren't, and they don't follow the Native American church or their traditional, because I like to say I'm Christian. So a lot of the traditional stuff, like healers or certain ceremonies, I'm clueless. I'm the wrong person to ask about it. So I usually refer them to Lucinda, and she tells them, and I'll sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I still don't understand that ceremony, So it's different. But a lot of times it's just, I think, by word of mouth on what they hear from other clients that were there. So it's all different.
Yes, so you help the victims apply for protective orders and file for divorce and things like that?
So legal issues.
Yes.
Okay. We do assist our clients with lay legal advice. We do have a staff attorney on site. He is assigned through the DNA Legal Aid Program, the grant aid, and he helps with filing temporary protection orders. We've had prior staff attorneys that were also assigned to our area, and they did a lot more work, more civil stuff with custody, child support, just family disputes and such. But this particular staff attorney we have now solely focuses on emergency protection orders. And no, it's not a requirement for them to enter our shelter. It's just an option for them that, although people tend to think, oh, it's just a piece of paper, but that piece of paper is a legal document that shows that they have every right to use that in order to document any reoccurring incidences, and then there's a paper trail on this particular individual who's violating that protection order. Any other questions?
So you were talking about the Section 8. So how do you go about doing that? Do you have enough help with
getting that? I'm not really familiar with the Section 8.
The Section 8 portion of that is through the Navajo Housing Authority. It's a separate program that they apply for, not necessarily getting into a house that's designated in certain communities under the Navajo Housing Authority. It's they still go through the same process, the application, the background check, the fees and such. And just depending on what area they want to relocate to, then they send those paperwork out into that area.
So the reason for my question is because I'm a case manager here, and there's such a long waiting list. So, for example, for George, the waiting list is closed. They're still not even accepting anyone. So I'm just wondering, like, are the waiting lists open, or what's the process?
Through the Section 8 housing with Navajo Housing Authority, I know there's also a waiting list, and I guess it just depends on where they end up transferring those documents, and if they have available units on those areas, then those get sent out quicker. As to the housing itself, in the Kayenta area, there's the Navajo Housing Authority there. It's a long list. There's other areas such as there's one in Shanto, to the city, Winderock, Shiprock, Chinle, I believe Delcom too. So it's just all over, and just depending on how many units are available. And when I mean available, it means did the family that moved out prior, was that house renovated and ready for the next use? You see a lot of these houses boarded up just because I don't know if maintenance weren't able to get to, or if there were enough funds, but of course you read that in the papers. I'm not going to talk about that, but I'm sorry, did that answer his question?
Yes, thank you.
What percentage of your participants at your shelter return back to their home with their user versus relocating somewhere else?
I think our statistics showed about probably half, just because there's a lot of factors playing into that, especially if there's kids involved. They tend to return just because, I don't want to say it's an excuse, just because their kids are missing that particular parent, but there's other factors, maybe because of financial, or maybe that was their home site lease and the guy is just there, or the lady's just there. I would say about half of our clients go back to that particular relationship. Any other questions?
I'm not sure how to ask this question. I'm shocked to see so many men be so stupid, so many men be so cruel, so lacking in sensitivity, understanding, love. What in the world is happening that is that we have so many men that think they can be abusive and somehow justify it and get away with it? And it just confuses me that we have to have this problem of let's help these poor women, and I think, who's teaching the men how to be men instead of bullies?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what we like to ask is, why do these abusers continue to abuse? And I think it goes all the way back to the family environment. Was that allowed? Did they see that? So it's a continuing cycle that they're picking up on. And I think with the younger generations now, there's always that thing about, are they entitled? Are they being let go? Of course, there's all these different laws that go into play. Whereas when we used to get disciplined, shoot, I was whipped with, fan belts and flights of waters and whatnot, and that wasn't considered abuse back then. Nobody called on it, but did that straighten us up? Well, I like to think it did, but she might disagree with me. But we tend to talk about that too when we go and do our presentations. How are you raising your child? Are you telling them that this is wrong, that you're supposed to talk things through, that hitting is not right? Are you explaining that to them? And so I think we really need to put that question back out to society, is that how are we raising our kids? Are we raising them to be productive members of society that are gonna be violence-free? But of course, there's a lot of things that go on in social media and a lot of these violent movies coming out, but we can't put the blame on that. Who gets to say who watched that, who watches that movie? We have the ability to say, nope, turn it off, go do something else. So that is a good question we need to put back out there. How are we gonna raise our kids to be violent-free? But like I said, we've seen increases in male clients, so we need to put that question back to the females out there. What are you doing? Why are you being abusive? So a lot of times it's a hard pill to swallow, but we need to make them realize that it is out there.
I have one more little question, if you don't mind. So, correct the name of the town we're at, but there, on the reservation, do you have that EIP program? The battered intervention program? Like, to help the abusers to change or improve their behavior and to try to stop the abuse?
The Batters Intervention Program, that is usually offered through the Indian Health Services Counseling Department or the Department of Behavioral Health. So, I will go ahead and stop here. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to meet us out there during our breaks or whenever we're going to be here tonight. We'll be here tomorrow as well. Thank you.